$10 to turn the lights off, which they are right now, and turn your microwave on for 30 seconds so we could see the glow of the microwave for 30 seconds in the dark. So just set the microwave for 30 seconds. That's $10. It's an easy 10.
Oh, shit.
30 seconds. But if you want to go a minute and give people a thrill, you can go a minute. Wow. Turn the overhead light off so we can just bask in the... Wow.
Hey!
Oh no, turn that off.
Hold on.
You gotta redo it now.
Redo it? Bullshit!
Yeah, just put it on for another 30. It's supposed to have no other lights. No other lights. So just do the 30 seconds again.
No!
Come on, just do the 30 seconds. You're ending on a good note.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Are you doing it?
Paper plate.
30.
10 seconds.
30.
10.
20.
10.
People are calling this your waveside chat.
That's pretty freaky.
Yeah, it is. I like it. Okay, somebody else asked one. Just can you answer a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, we talked about Perry's brother Brian being in jail for stealing cars. Was your father ever in jail for any reason?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Interesting.
Not that I know of.
Look at that.
The wave. So beautiful.
Isn't it nice to make people happy at the end of the stream instead of making them sad that you're screaming and like, you know, going crazy? Isn't it much nicer to make people happy?
I try.
Yeah, you did a good job. Anyway, I'll let you go, Perry. I just wanted to come back to that.
Good night.
I don't want to push it. Okay, good night.
Again.
Yeah.
Whitney's number, ASAP. Thank you.
All right. Good night, Perry.
Good night.
All right, he's gone. I don't think I could have come back any more than that. that was good enough. Can you thank Tom Perry? I don't think so. I think that's all we're gonna get. I can't do a full after hours tonight. We just I'm not functioning on all cylinders. I'll do a couple minutes, and I know I'll say that, and then I'll be here till 4 a.m. But I really can't do a lot. How much would it cost to get a video of Perry? I don't even want Perry. I just would imagine him just doing something stupid and hurting himself. I wouldn't want him to snowboard. Yeah, it is starting to annoy me how much he asked for Whitney's number. It's, you know, because here's the deal. I don't like to. I don't think it's my role, and I do it sometimes. I feel a little better, Belushi. I've been taking some stuff, Belushi Sushi. So if I sound better, I do. I'm going to take some NyQuil after this. 40 minutes is maybe. But I don't think it's my role to sell the Whitneys or anybody else's, you know, whoever is coming in. You know, I'll do it a little bit with Amy because I think that's a different category. But I don't like. It's a little weird if me in my role as the director, as the almost co-host at this point, if I'm selling. The only way I'll use Whitney is that I'll say, hey, like the next day if he's like really bad. I'll be like, hey, Whitney was upset or something like that. That's where those things are helpful, like the Whitneys, and that is when they when they acknowledge his bad behavior. Like, you see how he perks up for Whitney when she comes in. So if Whitney says something like, you know, you've been terrible tonight. You've been really misbehaving. That's helpful to me, but I don't like to aid in the, you know, selling of all of these names. You know, if he grasps onto it, great. But I don't want to enable that one way or the other, because I don't think it's my role. Personally, that's how I feel about it. Tim Brennan, yeah, I mean, subtly. I mean, I don't really have to say anything. He does all the talking for me. I don't really have to say anything. You know. And by the way, I think there's two Whitneys. Is there two Whitneys? Because I feel like there's a different tone sometimes. Like, sometimes it's on one level, and then there's another one that's like on a drastically different level. So I feel like there's two Whitneys. No, he can't hear me. I turned off his Skype. He's completely gone. I thought that was enough. I didn't want to push it any. I didn't want to push it. I don't want to push it past that. You know. I mean, he was pretty terrible for a little stretch there, and he ended great. I mean, the fact that he did the shop vac was great. You know, that was just such a great ending. It ended happy, and he'll wake up happy, unless he finds the eggs in his credenza finally from like 2 weeks ago, but that hasn't happened yet. Yeah, okay, so like saying Whitney, having Whitney say he's being a baby is good. That's good. You know, that's helpful, and I don't think it's a bad thing to push that. Right. The Whitney I do is just mad at him and picking up on how he constantly flirts with other girls. Right. Yeah, the system maybe, but the system is so old. Like, it's been so long. I don't know if that has the same grip on him, but it seemed to pick him up a little bit tonight. Do I believe I could defeat Perry in a snow blading tournament? I'm not I don't do skiing or anything like that. I am not a fan of skiing or anything like that. You know, the couple of times I've gone on ski trips with friends, I've been the guy that stays in the lodge bar and like drinks outdoors and let all the other people do their skiing, and then you know, I'll be sitting by the fireplace enjoying a cocktail or something like that. I go tubing or something like that. I don't like skiing, and I guarantee I won't like snowboarding. So no, I don't think I'd even try it. Yeah, I should get a tattoo of skiing. I think I've literally. I think I actually did technically ski twice, so that would qualify. Oh, okay, I'm getting more confirmations on some Whitneys, so that's interesting. What's more disappointing these days, the Stern Show or the Mets lineup? I'll say the Mets lineup and their lack of hitting, because the Stern Show doesn't exist to me anymore. I haven't listened in, years. 2015, early 2015 was the last time. Any chance to get Yergi from Windy City Heat to phone in? No, I wouldn't want to cross those streams. I like to keep the, and I don't have any connection to Yergi. I think that would be he's better suited on the Big Three universe. Yeah, let's go Mets, but you know it's a typical Mets season already, where you got DeGrom carrying the team on his back, and nobody else doing anything. So yeah, it's just it's not been a great season. We'll see how it goes. It's early. It's still April. Well, it's actually not April anymore. Now it's technically May. Yeah, the Post did a decent article on Stern, but I think it should have been a deeper dive, because the woman who wrote the article, it was a very well written article, and she made a lot of points about, like, right now Howard Stern is going down in the past year since the pandemic, but I mean, there's a litany of things that he was horrible with well before the pandemic. And I haven't listened to him, in a long time. I've seen clips here and there, but I can only imagine how bad it is now, because it's just so bad. I mean, again, I can go all night on what happened. Like, people say, "Oh, he jumped the shark." I see that online all the time. Howard Stern jumped the shark. Now it's like, you don't understand what jumping the shark means. Jumping the shark doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden terrible. Jumping the shark is the moment where you're no longer as good as you once were. And going by that math, Howard jumped the shark like 20 years ago. I mean, maybe a little less, but it certainly wasn't this past year. Who would win in a battle of the wits, Jeff the Drunk or Perry? I honestly think Perry would win that one out. I do know the guy who sends the pizzas, because he messages me. It's just, I was a little worried tonight because he was fired up about it yesterday. And when I looked on the ring cam and saw the stack of them, I was slightly worried. Jackie or Artie? I'm going to go with Jackie. Hands down, Jackie. Because Jackie wasn't really an on-mic guy. And what I loved about Jackie, not as much for his contributions, I loved the ragging on Jackie. I loved the joking about Jackie's, shitty tchotchke things that he would sell, his shitty stand-up career. I loved making fun of his wife. There was this whole period where there was this big nor'easter on Long Island, and his basement got flooded, and all of Jackie's like junk that he sells fans was like floating around, and they were making fun of that. Timmy, his cat Timmy, when that got run off. So many things. So that's what I liked most about Jackie, was the goofing on him, not his actual contributions. Yeah, his books were like, anybody that ever bought anything of Jackie's, whether it was like a CD, because he'd always have his plugs, and then that circus music that would play behind Howard when he was doing the plugs. He's like, all right, catch Jackie the Joke Man at it'd be like doo 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 doo. And if you would ever buy, it's like buying a Scary Perry skateboard. It's like anybody who ever bought a Scary Perry skateboard bought it as a gag gift for somebody or themselves. If you bought a Jackie the Joke Man anything, it was a gag gift. It wasn't. You didn't really buy it. And also you got to give Howard credit in this sense. Before he went unlistenable, he was actually very restrained on merchandising. He never sold anything to his audience unless it was like a book or like a video that was a big deal. But he didn't have there was no T-shirts or anything like that. He didn't slam his audience with tchotchkes, which a lot of other radio guys did. So maybe he should have on a restrictive level. But I think a lot of people bought Jackie's stuff because there was no Stern stuff to buy. So Scott the Engineer, most underrated in Stern's universe. I don't disagree with that. I really liked Scott the Engineer. Again, for the same reason, I liked him goofing on like his temperament or his smoking or stuff like that. There's actually a pretty good, I wouldn't say pretty good, but I watched it. I was in bed a lot today, so I was watching a lot of YouTube, and I caught Steve Grillo has some kind of podcast, which is whatever. I've never seen it, but he interviewed Scott the Engineer, and Scott actually looked nice. He looked good. He didn't slam the show or anything, but it was good to see him. And Jackie always laughed at his own jokes, and you could always tell the jokes that he wrote for Howard, like during the news. Like Robin would say something, and Howard would give a line, and then Jackie would laugh out loud. That was his contribution. Do the real Brian, Amy / kids have any idea this exists? No, and that's probably a good thing. Maybe they do, but I was actually thinking of that. Like if Amy ever looked up Perry on YouTube and found like Hot Amy Live, what she would think about it. That'd be interesting. I found it hilarious that Perry refused to believe that you could have a long lost brother. The second is not about him, is somehow able to tell it's not real. Yeah, you're not far off on that. I mean, that's hot dogs and donuts. There was another like Jackie thing. It was like, who farted, ice melted, and then if you like Howard always like, who farted, ice melted, something like that. It's just terrible. Is there any way I can post my Bloody Mary recipe on Discord? Yeah, I mean, me being sick kind of slowed that down. I was gonna test it out this week. I'm gonna try to test it out tomorrow. I again, it's like getting back into it. I'm gonna see how I feel tomorrow, and I'm gonna try to make one and get it close to what I was doing. But yeah, I'll definitely post it. If I don't post it in time for Sunday, I'll definitely get around to posting it. But if I'm right as rain by Sunday, I'm definitely having a bloody at the start of the show. I'm not gonna keep pounding them because I do need to be sober. But I will post that for sure. Artie ripping on Howard was great. He called him a pelican, and you could tell Howard didn't respond. Yeah, that was like on the show. I remember that. There's also a pretty good Artie talking about modern day Stern on, I think it's the Opie and Jim show, whatever that was, where he's actually pretty honest about what happened to Howard, like basically making the points that, like, you know, a few years ago Howard was railing on Ellen DeGeneres, and now all of a sudden he's like going on her show and complimenting her and how much he loves her dancing, and just like the complete 180 he did. It's kind of interesting to hear his take on that. Yeah, that's right. Jackie had another city called Come Again. Yeah, and I always loved Howard's Jackie voice. That he, like, I don't think I could do it now because I'm not feeling it. But he was like, you know, come again, where he would just be goof. Like Howard would be doing his plugs, and Jackie's plugs were always written into his contract, like that's part of his pay. And Howard would always rip on the guy's plugs, and it was always a thing. No, Big Three does not have a Patreon. Big Three has a premium membership page at big3premiummembership.com. But no, they don't have a Patreon. Barry has a Patreon. Patreon.com/Barry Caravello. This stream will be up there tomorrow. Yeah, Billy West was the best at the Jackie impression, especially with the Jackie puppet. Now here's the thing. If Perry runs into Amy in real life, it will be difficult to explain, stream Amy's role in all this to the cops. I don't know if Perry would recognize her, because when's the last time he saw her? You know, and I don't think there's any chance of him ever running into her again. Yeah, Don Barris was on Stern in a Dice satellite interview, and it's the one where Dice like fought with Jackie, kind of at the period where Dice was just. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the biggest Dice guy, but he was really good on the Stern Show in the early '90s, and by like that, I think that was like '96 or something, maybe '97, and he wasn't as good anymore. He had lost something. I don't know what that is. No, I never watched Kenny versus Spenny, but not for any reason. It just hasn't come across my plate. Oh yeah. Paul Morrissey. Did you ever see the meeting Howard had with all of the new rules in 2013? Shift his celebrity guests. Yeah, and I have a whole theory on that, because that's around like 2012/13 was that period where everything changed. It was 2 years since Artie had left. He was doing America's Got Talent. He had hired that Marcy Turk to come in and reorganize things. And I'll tell you, what I think is ground zero. No, I didn't know Gavin was in Kenny Spenny. What I think is ground zero for Howard changing is his friendship with Jimmy Kimmel, which I think ruined him, because it showed him what he could have. And I think if you're a big-time Stern listener, and you remember listening when Jimmy had that party for Howard, like that he threw with all of his celebrity friends, and obviously all these guys are big star effers, right? Like they love the fact that they have all these celebrity friends. So Jimmy threw this party at his place for Howard, and he had, I forget who was there. John Stamos, of course, who was friends with Howard, but like big names like Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, Ben Affleck, people like that, people that were outside of Howard's periphery on the air. See you on Sunday, Mr. Asif. I understand that you can't stay. I'll be signing off soon too. But anyway, so he was talking about this party, and like Don Rickles was there. Like all these people were like kissing Howard's ring. And because the whole thing about the Stern Show is, as big as the show was, as huge as the show was, he never got the big guests, which we loved, us listeners. I'd much rather have Gilbert on the show than Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt promoting their new movie, or Gwyneth Paltrow or whoever. And but I think he went to that party and it changed him, because he came back talking about it like he could not believe to these people that came to him, and I think that changed him. I think that not that friendship, in a way, I think Jimmy Kimmel ruined the Howard Stern show. And then he had another party, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, why can't I get these people on my show? What do I have to do to turn my life around to get that? And I agree with Belushi Sushi. Stern played us for years. He always wanted that life, and that's a hard realization to come to, because I always wondered, who was the real Howard? Was the real Howard the guy that we heard in the 90s who was sending Stuttering John out to these premieres to shit on all these celebrities? Or was the real guy the guy now that people call him a great interviewer. He's not a great interviewer. He doesn't listen. And again, I'm going back like 5-6 years when I would listen, but he would never listen. He just had his agenda to get out. And it's the format. It's the format of no commercial breaks for an hour plus. Any one of us can talk to a celebrity, ask questions, and get a good interview out of it when you have that format. It's uncensored. You can talk as long as you want. He's not a master interviewer. That's a crock of shit. And he has a whole team of people, too, that, if somebody's promoting a book, somebody else reads the book and gives them bullet points, But he's not a good interviewer. But anyway, so who was the guy? And I think would really... I think Beth played a part in it, but I think Stern ruined himself before she did. But, I go back a long time. I go back... you think they're the same. He basically scared everyone into being it's easier to be friends with this guy, than turned as soon as the A-listers fell. Yeah, fair point. But I go back to he another thing that little things that changed him. I think it was the summer of '88, and I was in grammar school, and he took the summer vacation. He went out to LA for 2 weeks, and he did the Hollywood Squares, the 80s Hollywood Squares with John Davidson, and he filled in for Shadoe Stevens. He was the center square for a week. And he came back, and he also did the Arsenio Hall show. Before Arsenio had the Arsenio Hall show, Arsenio was doing the Joan Rivers show after Joan Rivers had left or been fired or whatever. So Arsenio was filling in for that show, which led to his own show later on. And he was thrown off the Arsenio Hall show, and he talked about it. And he was not respected on his LA trip. And he came back slamming Hollywood, hating everybody in Hollywood. And it made him all the more bitter, which I love. That's what I loved. I loved angry, bitter Howard. I loved miserable Howard. I loved Howard when he was married, and the shows would go on for 6 hours because he didn't want to go home. When he married Beth, all of a sudden the shows were 4 hours on the dot because he wanted to get right back to that penthouse apartment. Back when he lived on Long Island and he was in this horrible marriage, the shows would go on forever. There were shows that went on till 1 p.m. And they started at 6. So anyway, there was a thing he had against Johnny Carson. He would always rail against Johnny Carson and say, there's all these people that call in and ask about Johnny Carson this, or there was something in the news about Johnny Carson beating his wife. And he would go really into it and be anti-Johnny. But I think he was anti-Johnny because Johnny didn't have him on, and he thought that he was good enough to be on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And, of course, he wasn't at the time. But he was always on the outside looking in. He wanted to be at that table. He wanted to be... That's why he sent Stuttering John out to those premieres. That's why he shit on... when Robin did the news, one of my favorite things was they take those press junket clips from, anybody promoting a movie, and they'd play a clip of whoever. And Howard would just lambaste them, and he doesn't do that anymore because now he's one of them. But he always wanted to be one of them. And so getting back to Belushi Sushi's original point, I think he always wanted to be on the other side of that glass, and now he is. But it still doesn't take away from what he did, in the 80s and 90s and even early to mid 2000s. He was still unstoppable. It's like a band that you love that turns into shit. Does it, just because their 10 years of albums suck, does it take away from their legacy? Maybe it does a little bit, but it's tough. His true skill that he was better ever at, and surrounding himself with interesting, broken people to disguise how boring he is. Yeah, that's fair. It's fair. But you know, he had a good run. It just sucks that he goes out like that. It just sucks that he goes out this way. It's too bad, really, because it was a great show. I know a lot of people probably never listened or whatever, but it was, back in the day, it was great. Yeah, Stern is Ellen for males now. You're not far off. It's true. But yeah, I don't know. There's other stuff to listen to now. Howard's ego would never allow him to develop someone to take over his show, and he treats his employees like shit, as we've talked about, before. He's not a good person. He's horrible too. I mean, like, the amount of money that he takes in versus the amount of money that other people make, not including like Robin, and I think she gets paid okay, but it's like the disparity of like people, like the lower office people make. It's ridiculous. Comes a point where, like, how much money do you really need? He doesn't share the wealth at all. Yeah, and then if you leave the show, if you have your audacity, if you're a staff member and you have the audacity to leave the show, like Stuttering John or whoever, you can name whoever it is, you're dead to him. Like, he'll just like never talk about you again, like as if you never existed. You want to read? Yeah, I do too, because you could tell you want to read Fred's tell-all book after Howard dies. I think Fred probably hates Howard as much as we do, if not more, but he's sticking with it till the bitter end, and yeah, he'll eventually, maybe, I don't know, Fred's a weird guy, maybe he won't, but I think Gary is the bigger mouth who would maybe dish some dirt, but Gary's kind of a company man too. I wonder if he would ever really dish some dirt, because Gary's the one that really got shit thrown at him, because when Howard brought in that woman, Marcy Turk, she basically took over Gary's, like, basically emasculated Gary. Like, she took over everything, and like, all of the bookings and structure of the show. I mean, I'm sure he still had some tasks, but he was completely gutted of all any semblance of masculinity that he once had. I'm surprised Gary hasn't told him to go F himself and just, done something else. Yeah, right. Gary probably cares about, providing for his family. Gary has like a nice home in Connecticut. The show's done well for him. I mean, he's not making anywhere near Howard money, of course, but he's made a good living for himself. Yeah, I agree with Ricky. Stuttering John hiding the fact that he got the Leno gig was the smartest move he could have made. If Howard knew, he would have squashed that for John. He doesn't want anyone to succeed without him. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I was sad to see John go, but at the same time, I was happy for him, But, yeah, I think John leaving the show had a bigger effect on the quality of the show than people realize. The show definitely lost something when he left. Yeah, right. You would do these shitty gigs on weekends just to make money. Yeah, and like I don't think his like Leno gig lasted that long, right? Well, I guess it lasted long enough, because when did Leno? Because I'm losing my timeline here, but wasn't that like I think he left? I think John left in around 2004. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then maybe he was there a good 6 years, because then Leno left the Tonight Show, and then it was that whole debacle where Conan took over, and then Leno came back, but when he came back, he didn't have John as the announcer. I did try work. Somebody said I never shocked you didn't try working for Stern. I did try working for Stern. I tried. I applied as an intern, and even like after that, I applied for like got some kind of job there. Yeah, I always thought when I was a kid, I always thought working for the Stern Show would be the ultimate thing. It would be like, oh wow, just to be one of the team to make the greatest show ever. But obviously now I don't see it that way. But when I was in school, that was my ultimate goal. I mean it's all I listened to. So John as the announcer lasted 5 years. Yeah, but he was welcome. Yeah, and he was a writer too. Like he wrote in the writers' room. I don't know like how good he was in the writers' room, but he. Yeah. Have I seen the video of Howard on stage with Rob Zombie performing Dracula? No, but I can imagine that being really cringe. Right, but Howard, like, it's usually what a weird person Howard is. Like, the fact that he needs a stylist, like, what kind of man needs a stylist? Like, if you look at, like, Howard, like, really adapted his look off two people in the 80s and early 90s. Well, not the 80s when he had the mustache. That was really him. But when he grew the hair out and he was kind of dressing like a hard rocker, he was just copying Dee Snider, who was his friend from Long Island. They were buddies. And, of course, Howard ditched him, over the years. And then when he found Ralph, like, in, like, the... like 90, I don't know, early 90s, I guess, then he just adapted Ralph's look. Or Ralph adapted his look for Howard. Pathetic. He's never had his own look. Just crazy. Yeah, Belushi Sushi, he always talked about how much he liked Billy and would love to have him back, but Billy was past it. If Billy wasn't massively successful, he wouldn't want him back at all. Yeah, but he also, like, threw Billy under the bus. I mean, he didn't throw Billy under the bus, but he didn't fight for him. Again, it's like Billy wasn't making any money there, and Billy was at the point, like, Billy was fucking successful, like, in other things. Like, he was doing Ren and Stimpy at the time. He was already doing like voiceovers for commercials left and right, and he was still coming into the show. Like, I think he had a deal where he was coming in 3 days a week out of the 5 days. I forget exactly what his deal was, but he wasn't coming in every day. And all he wanted was like a bump in salary to talk to Tom Chiasano, who was the program director at the New York station, K-Rock. And it's just, I forget, I don't know the dollars and cents of it, but I think he asked Howard if he could put in a word for him, and Howard never did it. And he was just, that would piss me off too. And he's never gone back, and I don't think he ever will. And at this point, it wouldn't make any, like, Billy going back at this point, even for an interview, it would be bullshit, because you're getting 2021 Stern. That ship has sailed and sunk a long time ago. Yeah, that's a good callback. Paul Marcy, Mitch Vitale, who was Robert's intern, got in a car accident and had his roommate fill in for the semester. It was Stuttering John. That's true. That's right. And Mitch hated Fred. I remember actually Mitch, when Mitch was an intern on the show. And one thing I liked about Mitch is they keep logs for the show. Like, when the show runs on, they have, like, interns working on the logs for the show. Like, what happens? Like, okay, at 8:30 a.m. this guest comes in. At 9:14 Robin starts her news or whatever. And when Mitch was entering things into the computer, he would just type in "fuck Fred. Fred sucks. And Gary would talk about, like, years and years later, when they'd have to go back to the logs to pull, like, a best of clip or something like that, they'd come all across his logs, and it would be like notes about how much he wanted Fred to die, which I always thought was funny. TomB, it's me, Birdbrain Bill. I think the way Stern used Beetlejuice and Gary the Retard and many others is strange. How much money he made on that and did nothing for those assets, giving them nothing. Yeah, that's a fair point too, but they also had avenues, especially Beetlejuice. I think he made a lot of it's what you do with the fame that you get from the show. I mean, I remember Beetlejuice did stuff. It's funny. It always amazes me how nobody thought of Cameo before Cameo came out, because Sean, who was Beetlejuice's manager, was pretty crafty, and he would do things like he would do a video. Like they offered this thing on Beetlejuice's website years ago. Like fucking, I'm talking like 2002, 2001, where he would send you a video message via email, like Beetlejuice, and it would be like $50 or something like that, or you'd get a still Polaroid with something written on poster board. I have one. My girlfriend at the time got me one from Beetlejuice, and it was like a surprise present. And I was like, wow, that's a good idea. More people should do that. It's amazing how long it took. I always think of like, man, I wish I can go back in time 10 years and be the guy who invented Cameo. But would I say that Stern became a sellout when he got money, or did he always just have this huge ego? I think he always had the huge ego. He was, by the way, he was getting big money even in the 90s. We just didn't know about it. Like he desperately, if you remember when he ran for governor in 94, the reason he dropped out was because there was a disclosure that you had to give when you ran for office, that you had to disclose your income. And he didn't want to do that because and kind of wisely in a way, he didn't want to tell his working class audience how much money he was making, which was probably obscene even in 94. Not obscene, I think he deserved it. But he made a ton of money and didn't want to disclose that. So he was making money long before we ever knew about it. So I mean, I think, money changes people, but I don't think it was more money. I think it was just status. He wanted to be worshipped, and that's why I always call bullshit every time when it's up for a Stern renewal. And it used to be a kind of a fun gag when I was actually a fan, like, oh, is he going to renew or not? But now, like recently, over the past 2 renewals, it's like, do you honestly think he's going to go out in a year where it's like a pandemic, and he's going to go out with a whimper? He wants a big send off. He wants all these big celebrities coming in and kissing his ring. There's no way he's going to go out. So I always think that's such a joke. Oh, will he or will he not resign? We know he's going to resign. He only works 3 days a week, and he has a ton of vacation time. Tom Chiusano's son's a TikTok influencer now. That's interesting. Was Tom running a 6 game on Perry? No, I'm legit sick, and I'm going to wrap up soon. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to feel better tomorrow. I'm hoping it's not COVID. I don't think it is. I just think it's a cold. You went to the last Hard Rock show. Was that in Vegas when Artie passed out? Oh, wow. All the whack hackers in the casino wandering out. I almost flew out for that trip. I think that was like 2004-ish. And they went to Vegas twice, and I almost convinced a friend of mine to go out for it. In hindsight, I wish I would have done it, because that would have been so cool. Gary's son works at Netflix? Wow, which one, Jackson? Jackson or Lucas? That's another thing. I remember I just randomly, when Gary first had his son, and Howard was just a dick, goofing on him, and they would play Gary's voicemail, outgoing voicemail, and his voicemail, he just had the son, and he's like, "Hi, you've reached Gary, Mary, and Jackson. Jackson's not old enough to pick up the phone right now, but maybe in a few years he will. Anyway, leave it." And Howard just went on for an hour plus of dissecting that voicemail. I'm like, Gary, you fucking loser. He didn't even say fucking, but you loser. He's like, what kind of loser leaves a voicemail like that talking about your kid? You're such a douchebag. He's like, your son's going to grow up and be ashamed of you. That's the stuff I loved. You just completely dissect Gary. But, see, I don't get the whole Mick Hine reference. That was after my time. Or what's that other one? Hit him with the Hine. People were saying that, hit him with that. I have no idea what that is, nor do I want to know. That was after I left. That's pretty cool that Gary's kids are successful like that. I didn't know that. I don't feel one way or the other about the Jesus Twins. I liked anybody that came on the show and pushed buttons. I liked their arrogance, and I liked the way they just thought they were I couldn't figure out if they were characters or they were really that fucking arrogant. But I did like their appearances were kind of polarizing. People either hated them or I don't know, love them, but people liked listening to them. And plus, I remember when Howard was on E, for some reason, the Jesus Twins E episode ran constantly. So it was always something that Gary Dell'Abate pitched at Citi Field in opening, with the opening, I think it was the opening month or opening 2 months of Citi Field in 2009. And it was one of the worst pitches ever. You got to feel bad for him. Oh, that's right. Okay, right. Yeah. Okay. So I did listen at that time. Gary claimed to have a crazy high IQ, and guy called in and tricked him with a trick question saying machine, and it was pronounced McKine, and he opened it really. Yeah. I was still listening then. That was like 2007 ish. Yeah, I was still a daily listener at that point. Didn't one of the Jesus Twins die, like within the past 10 years? When did you leave? When did you stop listening Belushi Sushi? And what was the reason why you stopped listening? Was it a slow? For me, it was just one day I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. What am I doing? I got to stop. It was when Suicide by Cop. God, I kind of remember that. It was. I think I've said this before, but I think it's when Howard announced. It was slow. It was really a sludge for me to get through it. I was so behind too. Like I stopped listening sometime in 2015, but where I was, like I would download the shows, even though I had a serious subscription, but I would download the shows so I can listen to them when I wanted and like pause and stop. And I was so behind. I was like 6 months behind. So technically, I think I was probably, maybe I was early 2015. It was whatever he had Madonna on or was going to have Madonna on. And I've said this before, but like he was arranging the whole schedule of the show to accommodate Madonna. And she was going to be on at 12 noon. The show was going to start at 12 noon because she couldn't get up early to do the show. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. You know, all the America's Got Talent thing, you know, Artie not being there, the cat adoption shit, and, you know, Eric the actor had passed away. And I was like, you know, this is the guy that used to rail on Madonna, used to call her all kinds of names, and now he's basically bending over backwards to accommodate the start time. And I was like, yeah, I'm not listening to that show. And maybe I'll go back in time. And I just never went back. But wow, Tim stopped in 2005, so that's before he even went to Sirius. Yeah, I mean that's fair. You got out at a good time, I think. Yeah, I love the Bob Uecker. I love the Bob Uecker stories too. Fuck. So one of the Jesus Twin who died had a shotgun and walked in front of cops. Damn, that's one way to go out. Slow burnout after Artie left. Stuck around for years, but just wasn't that into it. Things like Shitgate would keep me interested. I think the Big Birthday Show was when I was like, yeah, I'm done. Yeah, fucking great call. The Birthday Show was really the fucking warning sign that woke me up too. That Birthday Show was atrocious. The one hosted by Jimmy Kimmel, and it was loaded with celebrities, everybody not associated with the history of the show. And it was like people like Robert Downey Jr., Bryan Cranston, who I'm fucking sick to death of at this point. But at the time, he was like, you know, I think Breaking Bad was either just ending or whatever. So he was on there. I think the only person that made any sense on that show was Letterman, because Letterman and Stern have a history together. But then, like, you know, Gilbert Gottfried was seated with the Whack Pack, and I think he was acknowledged in passing. He was never invited to the stage. I'm like, here's a guy who was not arguably, but probably the best guest that show ever had, and he's seated with the Whack Pack. Like, how fucking insulting to Gilbert was that? And, yeah, just fucking bullshit. And that show, yeah, that show did it. That I mean, it planted the seeds, because it was just such that was the first, like, star fucking thing that I remember hearing. Was that was it his 60th birthday? Had to be his 60th birthday, right? Fucking awful, just fucking awful. And yeah. So it was a slow burnout after that. I don't know what year that was. Fucking garbage. I remember listening to that and be like, how can this be considered the Howard Stern show? Fucking crazy. Yeah, Artie saying North Shore Animal League. Who needs money more than animals in the Hamptons? Yeah, exactly. That was great. That's what was great about Artie is he was the voice of, even though he did very well for himself too. He was the voice of the everyman on the show. He would talk about sports and betting and like guy shit, taking away from Howard's out of touch rich person shit, and that's what was the best part about Artie. Yeah, they had Gilbert sitting by Yucko the Clan. I remember Gilbert talking about that, and you could tell he must have been Gilbert must have been really depressed about that because Gilbert was always a part of the birthday shows. He was always a part of any events, and here's a guy who contributed. This is for old school Stern fans. Who contributed more to that show than Gilbert Gottfried? Who? I mean, he was always in. Like, he was in, like, multiple times. And again, I have this huge collection of Gilbert appearances. There are some years where he was on just tons of times. Like, he would just come in by surprise. Like, he would just, like, walk in and do a great segment, when he played Jerry Seinfeld Jr. and they were pranking Jerry Seinfeld's answering machine. Fucking great stuff. And yeah, and you flash forward to his birthday party and he's sitting with the Whack Pack in favor of other celebrities. And I can't even remember the other celebrities that were on that show, but they had no attachment to Stern. It was just Stern coming out as the star fucker that he is now. Oh yeah, the George Takei fake Arnold call where he thinks it's actually Arnold was good. And I like George Takei at first for a while, and then I kind of burnt down on him too. They don't do George Takei anymore, right? Because he used to come in like a few weeks out of the year, but I can't imagine they still do that. Yeah, Dracula Godfrey was great too. Oh yeah, when Gilbert came in with Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice, I always loved moody Beetlejuice because you got different kinds of Beetlejuice. Like Beetlejuice would always be like hyped up and do like who me and do that kind of Beetlejuice, and then you would get moody Beetlejuice, which was my favorite. And moody Beetlejuice combined with Gilbert Gottfried was just beautiful. And Gilbert's like, it is good for me. Good for you, man. Good for you. He's like all moody. There's a great, if you go on YouTube, there's a great Beetlejuice thing when he's on the set of a movie, and I think Mike Ganji went on to like interview him. Like this is like, and he was super, super pissed off. And it's that, I mean, they played it on Stern a lot, but the visual is so much better. Where I wish I could find it. I'd pull it up here, but it was like the one where he's like sitting in a train car. I think he was doing some movie. I forget what it was. And he's sitting in like one of those chairs that has his name on it, because he's I guess that small part in the movie. And I remember Ganji's like, "Oh, is this your chair?" He goes, "This is not my chair." He's like, "No, actually, that's your chair." It says your name. "Actually, this is not my chair." And they just like arguing back and forth about his chair. It was before YouTube, I think, or maybe, I remember. And now it's on YouTube now. But I remember when that clip, it was just, I forget where I saw it. It was like in some message board or something like that. But Bubble Boy, that was it. The Bubble Boy set from fucking Beetlejuice. It was just fucking great. Moody Beetlejuice is greater than Perry Baby Mode. I agree 100%. We get Moody Perry too when he doesn't answer. Like if something comes in like, I'm not answering that, or he gives like the low resonance response. I think Perry went to bed. I don't want to push it with him tonight because I think he rallied and he did good. Because I was worried, like after I was thinking, I'm gonna have to call him and whatever. But he rallied. I think it was the pizza. It's always something that sets him off. And tonight it was the pizza, the pizzas. It could be the fish. It could be anything. Ricky, I think that's a rumor that Gilbert was banned when he spit on cupcakes. I mean, I know they were mad, but he was on multiple times after that. I think that's just a convenient excuse. No, Gilbert was banned when Marcy Turk took over and just said, we're not having comedians on anymore. We're getting A-list guests, and they bracketed. Even before that leaked video that Howard did, they bracketed like who was the A-list, who was the B-list, who was the C-list, and Gilbert was not. But it's like it's A-list or bust for Howard, and he was phased out. He just wasn't invited back, and I think Gilbert he talked about it on his own podcast once, where like even like Gilbert's wife called up Gary because Gilbert's wife was a publicist. I don't know if she still is, but she called like, "Hey Gary, what's going on? Why can't we get Gilbert on the Stern Show?" And he's like, "Oh, the show has evolved. You know, we're not getting away from comedians." But then he has fucking Chelsea Handler on. So you're gonna say in one sentence that you don't have comedians on, then you have somebody like fucking Chelsea Handler on. Fucking crazy. You know, and then Gilbert does that documentary. It's a really good documentary called Gilbert, where the show opens up with one of his last Stern interviews about like being a father, and you would think Gilbert would have been allowed to promote that documentary or his podcast or something on the Stern Show, and of course never was. Greatest ever Beetlejuice story is completely freezing out. By Michael Bay, who wanted him to a voice as a Transformer. Wow, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, Howard was always anti-podcast. I'm sure he is still anti-podcast because he's just completely out of touch. I was training somebody new at work and had to leave in front of seeing the stack of pizzas in the Ring camera. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, Marcy Turk got knocked up by one of Howard TV's camera guys. Yeah, I did hear that. I've never seen what she looks like. I've always been semi-curious. As well as what does she think of all of us, like the ex-Stern fans who hate her guts for what she did to the show. No, Bob Levy was terrible. You talk about a hack comic. If you look up hack comic in the dictionary, it says see Bob Levy. I mean, he is just a fucking... Ugh, he was awful. I always hated hearing his voice and his stupid plugs or hearing about his live shows. He was fucking unbearable. Yeah, Ricky, I can almost recite Gilbert's voice message to Gary in the 90s in his real voice. Because he used to play that ad nauseum, and it went along something like, "Hi Gary, it's Gilbert. It's 9:14, and I just wanted to go over what Howard wanted to do on the show tomorrow. All right, call me back. Bye." And it was like just this like Queens Brooklyn accent that he had, and then they would play it for Gilbert when he came in. He's like, "Hey Gilbert, this is his real voice," and Gilbert would just laugh. He would just do that like Gilbert Gottfried laugh, like not acknowledging it all, like that. But it's funny if you listen to Gilbert like back in like the late '80s, he was really putting on that like heavy Gilbert voice, and then even if you cut to now, like he's dialed it down a little bit, where now it's kind of a combination of that voice he had, and like he's not like Problem Child Gilbert, like where he's like really high like this. Now it's kind of like a low resonant, like it's close to his real voice, but he still puts it on. There's also a good YouTube video of Gilbert, because I went down a Gilbert rabbit hole like I don't know, a couple of years ago, and there's a great video of him. It's from the 90s somehow, and some guy is interviewing him, but the interview hadn't started yet, and so it's real Gilbert in his voice, and he's just talking about how tired he is because he just flew into LA. He's like, "I'm so tired. I don't know if I can do this. I'm just so tired. Boy, I am tired." And then all of a sudden the interview goes, "Yes, yes, yes. Oh yeah," you know, and he turns it on, which you got to give him credit for. Yeah, he sounds like his old Groucho impression. That's a fucking great point. He does sound like that. You know, when he would do the old Groucho, like, "Years ago, back in my day, you'd meet a girl, and she would come up to you, and she would say, 'Oh, take me dancing.'" And you know, because Gilbert is notorious for doing this great Groucho Marx impression, but not Groucho Marx from his heyday. Groucho Marx when he was on like Dick Cavett in like the 70s, and he was like old and wearing like a hat, and he was like, you know, wearing like 3 coats, and he was like all crinkled up. It was fantastic. And I like to, somebody brought up Artie's DVD Jack and Coke when this is one of the last great, like Jackie. I think Jackie Artie had a good play off each other when they were when Gilbert went on Stern, and when Gilbert went to Artie for advice on how to film his stand-up show for his DVD, and then he would do the impression of Artie telling him everything he has to do to get the DVD. It was all like basic stuff. Like, "What you gotta do is get a camera, and then you film the show, and then you film it the next day, just in case you do any other jokes. You know, and he just did this like really slovenly Artie impression that I thought was fantastic. Is Yucko more successful than Artie? I know he's a TV guy. What is Yucko doing now? Like the real guy? I know his name's Roger or something. What is he doing? I think anybody's more successful than Artie, because I mean Artie's not doing anything. What year did I first see Windy City Heat? 2003, the year it came out. Before it came out, I had a screener of it. Yeah, I got the Pat Cooper appeal just for his crazy temperament. You know, the all in Pat Cooper's Family stuff, like where his son would call in and he starts screaming, and also that was another Billy West thing where Billy West had that amazing dialed in Pat Cooper impression. So yeah, I liked Pat Cooper to a point, but not when he was like only when he was yelling at an asshole, which was the majority of the time. Good for him. I didn't know. I know he did that animated show and then it was canceled or whatever, but I haven't followed. Good for him. That's awesome. He does some shows on that. Fuck, man. I'm sure. Yeah, Artie looks fucking rough. There's no resemblance of the guy from like, Jesus, like 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. Yeah, Brickleberry, I remember that. Right. That was Yucko's show. The guy that the show that he worked on, and it was like canceled, and then they were goofing on him or something. I thought Yucko was a real clown when he first came around. I didn't realize it was a character. I thought he was a real guy, and then he had this weird thing where he was like in jail for like a clown who was in jail for something with kids. And I thought that was a little weird. I like Dirty Work. I think Dirty Work is a flawed, good, 90s comedy, and it's in that Adam Sandler template, just without Adam Sandler, with Norm, instead of Adam Sandler. Right? It's fine. Did they really? They digitally fixed Artie's nose in post in that show Crashing? Fuck, that's crazy. I've never seen that, but that's fucking crazy. Yeah, because didn't he, like, I forget the story. It was like he snorted glass at one point where like there was like some woman he was with like broke glass when they were cutting up heroin or something, and he like snorted a bunch of glass that like cut him up, and then on top of that he got in a fight with somebody, like maybe somebody he owed money to, who like really punched him hard in the nose, which really flattened him out, and it just never grew back or something. I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs of his nose collapse. It's just really sad seeing pictures of him. It's almost something like it's almost hard to goof on because it's so tragic. Like it's just, yeah, you get the real story in 10 years. Yeah, so Artie on Rogan 2 years back is essential, even though Rogan is a guy. Yeah, I can't stand Rogan, but I will say I'll occasionally listen to a Rogan interview because it's either somebody that never gets interviewed, like his Edward Norton interview from like 2 years ago was really good because that's a guy that doesn't do interviews a lot. So yeah, I would listen to that, but he's never like, Artie never goes all the way with his real stories, and then you never know when he's really clean because how many times has he said he's clean and then he's still. And then like he gets busted for something, and and then he's kind of disappeared over the past year because this time last year, not this time last year, but like February last year, he was just starting to do his own podcast again, a new podcast, and then the pandemic hit and he just disappeared. And and I hope he's doing well, but who knows? Yeah, what was his intern's name? Artie losing it on his intern was like Baby Mo Perry. Didn't he throw a CD at him because the intern said the word Bloomies, meaning for Bloomingdale's, and he like just turned on him and snapped on him? Yeah, I know who Adam Curry is. Of course, he's one of the original MTV VJs. The guy who alleges to create the podcast, and maybe he did. Like the thing I've heard his podcast. He does this thing that these DJ guys do, where they put this insane amount of compression on his voice, where he sounds very DJ-y, and it's just this. I wish he didn't have that effect, but I don't have anything against Adam Curry. Teddy, right? Teddy, that's Teddy the intern, right? Yeah, how do you get fired from Compound Media? But already did because he was taking so much money from them, and we talked about this where like they raised their own subscription prices to pay Artie's salary, which had to be enormous, and they took a real gamble on him, and that it didn't pay off. Obviously, it was terrible. So yeah, of course they had to fire him, otherwise they'd still have to pay him technically, and he wasn't showing up. He wasn't showing up for work. The best high pitch Eric story. I don't know. I like the small high pitch Eric stories about when they would have to call him out on stuff. Oh no, I mean the best high pitch Eric story, of course, is the dead fish when he came in to spin. He had to spin something, and then one of the things it spun on was get hit by a dead fish, and that's when he was like, "Oh, I hate dead fish. No dead fish. Oh, no. And like Casey was picking up and chasing him around with it, and he was freaking out. That was the best. That was the best. Yeah, the nose was on Artie's podcast. But no, I like the smaller stories where they'd call him out on shit. Like it'd be like, Eric, tell the truth about. Like he would try to use Howard's name to get free stuff, like get a limo ride into New York City, or to like scam like some restaurant for a free meal, saying that he was on the Howard Stern show or something like that. So he'd always get busted for doing really creepy things. I knew a girl, my friend's girlfriend, this is years ago, was at a concert and had guest tickets to whatever the concert was, and of course was sitting next to High Pitch Eric the entire show. And he was just hitting on her relentlessly and basically saying like, I could get you on the Howard Stern show, and doing all this stuff. And it was kind of interesting to hear like what he was really like. But now he's actually he actually makes good money on Cameo, or has made good money on Cameo, to the point where he's doing pretty well for himself. So, I mean, good for him, I guess. But, and then there was that thing where it was never really played on the Stern show, but I think it was played on Opie and Anthony, where he called Opie and Anthony and left a message for them and said that he was going to leave a bomb in there. He was going to put a bomb in their building. And of course, doesn't try to disguise his voice at all. Who has the more recognizable voice than anybody than High Pitch Eric? And he's like, I'm going to put a bomb in your studio. Like, you probably looked that up. And of course, it's obviously High Pitch Eric. And I think he got in trouble. I think Howard got him out of it or something, or the show got him out of it somehow. But he was, he was just, yeah. And I agree with, Belushi Sushi knows. He was never as stupid as he seemed. He was a scammer. First-rate scammer. Absolutely. Total scammer. Has Gavin been 86 from the 8th? I think Gavin's been 86 from everything. But no, not like officially, but I just think he's in his own little corner that he's painted himself into, and that's where he's existing now. Yeah, great. When Artie went on Joe Buck's show and just about ended the show. Yeah, I thought that was really crass when he went on the Joe Buck show and he was just like dropping the F. I mean, it wasn't the type of show to like, he was just like, he was clearly high or something, but he was like dropping the F-bomb left and right. Terrible. Yeah, Angry Black and Crazy Cabby. I was not a fan of Angry Black as a character, but I really liked the guy, Big Black. Big Black was this weird nerd guy that called into the Stern show like throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. And he had this rivalry with the King of All Blacks. And they actually did a show back at the time on Sirius where Howard was actually letting people do other shows on the channels. And they had a show called Black on Black. And I didn't listen to a lot of those shows. Those like Howard sub show, like, you know, Stern Fan Net Roundtable, or I never listened to any of that stuff. But Back on Black was actually a legit good show. It was very entertaining. If you could find it online, like download. It was just like this guy, Big Black, was this like another like guy, like he was on unemployment. He was afraid. He was like an agoraphobic, didn't like leaving his apartment. And then Big Black was this not Big Black, King of All Blacks was this big, flamboyant, guy, and they just had this insane chemistry together, and they'd call in and fight all the time, and it was like, yeah, I am sick, Stu, but you know what? I slept a lot today, so that's probably why. That's probably why I'm still up. I'm gonna call it soon though. We got into a big stern conversation. Yeah, Big Black was like a genius. He was, and also homeless because he was just incredibly lazy, like super lazy. It's like, and people like this who are like really smart, but they just like they don't want to work for anything. And when he first started calling into the show, he worked for the phone company. He was like a technician at the AT&T or something like that. And then years later, like people, like he'd be on the air, and people would call in who used to work with him, and they knew his real name, and they're like, "Oh, it's a real shame what happened to you. You were really smart." And yeah, he just went on government assistance, lived somewhere in the Bronx, and like shut himself in. But he would talk about how he would scam stuff, and like not scam stuff, but like how he would like live on this, like and he was happy on what he lived on, just to like because he was like afraid, like he hated people, hated being around people, and I was always fascinated with him. Tom spent a day living like Perry. I don't know, kind of. I tried to do some work today. Like I was trying to, but it just wasn't happening. I got a really bad headache, and I was sick yesterday too. But it was like a different kind of sick yesterday. Like yesterday, my nose was running, and I was like sneezing constantly. Today, I'm just like congested and sore, and like a slight. No, I don't work on a Kimmel show. So it was just better for me to stay in bed. I just like watched a lot of like YouTube, and that's basically all I watch is YouTube. Can I tell fans a little about Don and Mole's personal life? No, that's not for me to tell. Just like I wouldn't want them to tell me anything about my personal life. But yeah, so I watched like that Cumia, which is I think how we started talking about all this was the Cumia Gilbert interview that just popped up on YouTube. I don't have Compound subscription, but that was good. And then I just went down this rabbit hole of watching. Oh, I watched the Porcelain documentary on Kevin Brennan actually, which was really good. I didn't really know anything about Kevin Brennan, but there's this guy Porcelain that does these documentaries on like kind of failed comedians in a way, and it was really good because I watched the one on Joe Matarese the other night, and then so YouTube algorithm always suggests, my YouTube algorithm is so weird. It's like audiophile reviews of like speakers and headphones, and then it's like it could be a Paul Lynde commercial, or it's like I watch a lot of fat people falling down. There's this YouTube channel I watch that is just a camera in I think it's North Carolina on this low bridge, and it's like basically the camera just catches trucks crashing into the bridge and ripping themselves open. It's called the Can Opener Bridge. It's like I think I'll have to think of the name of the channel, but it's all I watch. It's just like shit that I was watching today, like just stuff that I didn't have to pay attention to because I don't watch any. I really don't watch any shows or anything like that, and any show I did watch, I'm super behind on. So it's just all like it's just all like nonsense. No, I've never heard of Henry's Kitchen on YouTube. What is that? Mumbles. Perry blowing up your personal life needs a 5-second live delay. I don't care so much. I don't have a son. I mean, he says that. I don't have a son. My girlfriend does. So it's technically not my son, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he is. But I live with him. But and Perry's really sweet to him, actually. Whenever he's on the phone, there's been a couple of times where he's called me cursing, like mad at like getting something delivered in the mail or whatever, and I was like, Perry, I have Teddy in the car, and then he's, oh, I'm sorry, and then he's sweet, and then he if you look at his Instagram, the little Teddy's the kid who got the shop vac present from Perry, which he was so happy to get in the mail, that toy shop vac that Perry sent to him. And of course, Perry being Perry, he spent $65 sending that. Like, I don't know why it cost that much, but he put a couple of things in there, but he loved it. He loved it. He still plays with it. So That's sweet. So like whenever Perry gets a thing, like he'll get like a kids type thing on the stream, like I'm sending this to you, and you know why. And he's like, this will go to you, and he means it. He's sending it to Teddy, which is super sweet in a way, because those things get reset. Like that dinosaur he has, you know, and like a couple other little things, and it just makes him, you know, if you're a 3-year-old and you get mail, you know, it's like, what's better than that? You know, you get some kind of like free things sent from California. Of course, Perry, you know, overpays for the postage, or I overpay, I should say. The Porcelain channel's name is just Porcelain. I think he has a hyphen. Let me pull up my YouTube history because I just watched it recently. I'll tell you in a second. Yeah, I watched Bob Hope as Jack Frost because it was referenced on the Gilbert interview. I watched How to Beat Mortal Kombat 2, Insane Difficult Level on an arcade console. I watched some home theater stuff. I watched a Quentin Tarantino interview. Okay, yeah, it's called Porcelain. Yeah, Porsalin, and it's just like he's got a documentary on Gavin too. It's very well done, but he's got that English accent, and those English accents always get you in documentaries, because it's one thing to hear an American accent, but you hear, like, if you're watching a documentary about anything, like it could be like a documentary about people that are like in romantic relationships with inanimate objects or cars, which there is one I remember watching years ago, and it could be an English guy going like, you know, last night Jeffrey was outside and he made love to his mother's car. Jeffrey's upset because his mother filmed it and has confronted him about it now. You know, it's a shameful thing. But when you get an American guy doing it, like, last night Jeffrey had sex with his mother's car, and now he's nervous because his mother filmed it and is confronting him about it now. It's a completely different thing when you have a fucking English guy doing the narration of a shameful documentary. And this guy has the quintessential English shaming accent, and he just hits hard on these comedians. But it's good. It's well worth watching. Even if you like these people, it's worth watching. Let me find that other channel, because I don't think it's that far back in my history. If you really want to watch something ridiculous. Jesus Christ, I watch a lot of fucking YouTube because I'm okay. So go to this channel. It's called the 11, like the number 11 foot FOOT 8 bridge, and the channel is YOVO68, and all this guy does is has a camera on this fucking bridge, and I mean, I've watched it for hours, where it's just like it's just, there's a low clearance sign that says trucks, you know, you have to turn, and they just go full bore. A lot of them are rentals too. You really feel for the people that bought and rented these trucks, and this fucking bridge just takes them out. Like, it'll rip it to shreds. It's just, it's fat. If you like watching that shit. But that's only if you like crashes or fat people falling or shit like that. Son of a bitch, I figured you wouldn't be on so long, so I went for a walk. Wow, you can listen to the replay, I guess. This one's only good if you're a Stern fan. You know, I don't know if you're not a lot of Stern talk tonight. Kid Perry talk about the time he got stuck in an elevator with Paul Lynde for 5 hours. Is that a true story? Huh. My girlfriend needed a night out and we got hammered. Just joining. Took everything in me not to put the earbud in. First one I missed. Yeah, I get it. You know. And I think, like, I don't know, like, do you guys watch the replays? Because I think some people either it's like live or die, or they watch it back. I got people outside. Like, I got my window open and it's raining, but there's people outside, like, having a party or something. If you hear any weird voices. Belushi Sushi can't figure out Gavin at all. Was it kind of a bit that went too far? Yeah, we talked about that the last stream or the one before that, where I think it was. I think he was I think he set it up as a goof, and then was an absentee landlord and let these, like, very easily influenced millennials run with it, and they ran the wrong way, and by the time he tried to take back control, it was too late. But he's too stubborn and prideful to admit wrong, so he doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on it, unfortunately. But yeah. You know, and whether or not you like the Proud Boys or don't like the Proud Boys is inconsequential. It's just not. It's not good for his overall career, because he was doing really well. There was a period of time after his book came out, and he did that movie where he was getting a lot of attention, and he was flying out to LA all the time, pitching shows. But yeah, obviously that's happening. Oh, you were joking. I know you were I know he wasn't really in the elevator with Paul Lynde. I thought it might be like the Kevin Spacey thing, where clearly he didn't meet Kevin Spacey, but he thinks it's someone else. Does he like if he was somewhere with Paul Lynde? But I can see him actually meeting Paul Lynde, because I see Paul Lynde being in Palm Springs at that time. But yeah, you can't trust his. You can't trust his. You can't trust his storytelling. If Stern commented on the Getting Things Done leak, I don't know about it, because I don't. By the time it leaked, I was no longer listening, so I have no idea. Right, he said he met Paul Lynde at a celebrity golf thing, maybe. Yeah, was that on a phone call, or was that like a passive comment? Yeah, I don't know. But he's got a lot of Palm stories. I'm just sick. I don't know, I get very fatigued when he mentions Palm Springs, because it's just the same beats all the time. It's just, except the poop story, which came out of nowhere. You know, like that I like. Best guest to goof on Mark Harris or Corey Feldman. Mark Harris by far, and I actually was friendly with Mark Harris. Stu, I'm 47, just turned 47. I was actually friendly with Mark Harris, and I stayed at his Bel Air mansion. That was Martha Ray's mansion, back in like the late 90s. And I took Mark Harris to a Morrissey concert in Hollywood as my guest. And we were like email friends, and we fell out of touch. And then he came to New York and did this show at Caroline's, which was, oh my God, it's such a longer story, but it was just, it was ungodly. I helped get him in there, actually. And he tried to do this vaudeville thing where it was, it's an unpleasant memory. It was like 2001, maybe. God, it's a while ago. I'd have to think, but I think he passed away, didn't he? Didn't Mark? I think he passed away, Mark Harris. But I have a lot of I hung out with him quite a bit when I was in LA, and he was as he was on the show. Tom dated Mark Harris. No, but I hung out with him. And he was super sweet. Like, it was really weird. It was surreal. Because he gave me the keys to the house. And I went out, late. I was staying in LA because I didn't have a ton of money. And I came to LA to see a couple of Morrissey shows. Because my friend was Morrissey's guitarist. And went to the Price is Right. And, it was like around Christmas time. And I had like a week off. And he offered to put me up. He's like, don't buy up. That Mark Harris voice. He's like, Tom. I still have some of his voicemail saved, but he was like, Tom, do not get a hotel. I will be very insulted. You will stay with me. You will stay with me in my guest room. And it was this beautiful old Hollywood home that Mark Harris owned. There was just like pictures all over, like Bob Hope stuff. Like, it was really, I felt like I was in old Hollywood. And like, there's one night I came in, I was out with friends, and he wasn't feeling well. So I don't think there was texting back then, but I forgot. However, I must have called him early and relayed to him that I was coming back late. He's like, just come in, and he gave me the alarm code and everything. I mean, unbelievable. I had a rental car. I I came into to this Bel Air mansion, which I had heard about on the Stern Show for years. Because this is '99, and like he's been on the Stern Show since like '91, maybe '90, and it was just fucking surreal to walk. I walked around a little bit, went in the backyard. You know, calling it a backyard is a joke because it was like this beautiful back area. Big frame pictures of Martha Raye with like fucking presidents and shit. And I'm like, as a Stern fan, I was like, I'm in fucking Martha Raye's mansion. You know, and I was in this beautiful guest room. And then he woke me up. He made me breakfast. He was a super sweet guy, actually. Oh, he died. Yeah, I know he died. Died from heart issues. Really sad. And he had a daughter that I became friendly with, who worked in New York City in the fashion district. And whenever he'd come into New York City, we'd get together and have lunch and stuff. I mean, he was. I mean, honestly, I love listening to his stuff and his music, and even like he played me his songs and stuff. And he was super entertaining. He never made a move. He really didn't. He was just he was always sweet. He was just a really sweet guy. And we just had we just stopped emailing at one point. Like there was just like a period of time we'd email back. You know what it was? We were on AOL Instant Messenger, if you're old enough to remember that. And he would always be on at the same time I was on. We'd chat back and forth throughout the day, whatever I was doing. And then when that kind of went away, or I went away from it, it cut off our communication. Yeah, I've met David. I have met David. I did meet David. I did. Yeah, David was at the house. Yeah, it was fucking crazy. And there was always a time he was always going to say he was going to take me to the Stern Show when he was going to go into the studio. And the fucking one time he went in, he was in New York like in early 2000 or something like that, and I was going to go, and I was fucking out of town, and by the next time it was like years later. If I'm looking for the best video ever, look up BBC documentary on UK Hells Angels in 1973, 20 minutes. But if it was fake, you'd think, we're doing it without how funny the whole thing is. That sounds good. I trust your judgment. You're spot on with everything else. So I'll make a note of that. UK Hells Angels 73. Just type it in right now. UK Hell's Kitchens. No. Okay, I got it. I got it pulled up. I'll watch this before I go to bed. BBC documentary, Hells Angels, London, 1973, from 8 years ago, 24 minutes and 37 seconds. Thank you. I'll give you my review of that. My aim was Ginge22. It was like, my nickname was Ginge. Actually given to me by Morrissey, of all people, because my hair is red, obviously, and ginger. And I have another good friend named Tom, and to distinguish us, one of us was called, a nickname, and the other one was called Tom. So I think I've outgrown that nickname now, but still people, like I have friends, like my friend in Ireland, the one who I'm helping out, whose aunt passed away, still calls me Ginge. A lot of friends that I have in other places call me Ginge because they were grandfathered into that nickname, and it'd be weird if they called me Tom. But as I've gotten older, I feel like I've grown out of the nickname. I always love the English narrators that have disdain for the subject they're covering, which is what makes the porcelain documentary so good. Just tell us the truth about. I would seriously come clean if there was something between me and Mark Harris. I would straight up tell you. I have no. I'm fairly private, but I don't. If they're like, hey, Mark Harris made a move, and he didn't even hint at it. He didn't buy me douche dash, but he was nice. Like he fucking bought. He took me to a really nice restaurant. Like he was, and he had no. He was just. I had he'd given his email address on the Stern Show, and I actually emailed him a decent email, and I said, it's kind of like when people write to Perry and say, all the joking, we actually really value you. I always like those comments that come in towards the end of the stream, like, we like to kid around, but in the end of the day, we really love you, and thank you for entertaining us. And I kind of wrote him an email like that. I was like, hey, I know everybody does the thing where they goof on you, but you're one of my favorite guests, and I always found you fascinating. And I did. I always found him fascinating, even back like when he was on the old Channel 9 show and how he would squares with Daniel Carver and stuff. Like, just the way he talked, he was this guy that was like out of time. Like, he desperately wanted to be some flamboyant guy in like the 1930s, not even the 40s. That would be too modern for him. But he was obsessed with Hollywood, and he had great fucking stories. He had great stories about Cesar Romero, Cesar Romero was a good friend of Martha Raye, and he knew Cesar Romero really well, and I was always fascinated with Cesar Romero. And he had a good collection of Cesar. I can honestly say this. He gave me a sports coat owned by Cesar Romero, because I still wear sports. Like, I always had that look of like, the t-shirt sports coat thing I got into when I was in my 20s, and I kind of never dropped it. So I still wear like the sports coat, and I wanted to go to this concert, and I didn't have a dressy thing. He's like, oh, I have a huge wardrobe, something that will fit you. And Cesar Romero was a big dude, so it didn't fit that great on me. But he gave me this sports coat, and at the end of the night, we came back, and I gave him the sports coat, and he said, "That is yours. You will keep that." And because keep Caesar in your mind, keep Caesar in your heart, because he knew I was a big Cesar Romero fan. I mean, not you know what I mean, like, just fascinated by the guy, not necessarily his body of work, but he had some really interesting deep dive stories about Cesar Romero. Cesar Romero had this insane suit collection. He when he passed away, he had like walk-in closets that were like 1,000 suits and like 1,000 sports coats. The guy was a massive collector of suits. So anyway, I could say I still have it. I have it's in my closet right now. I have a Cesar Romero sports coat. I've never taken it up, like, to bring it to like a tailor. Maybe I will one day, but I felt like that would kind of be blasphemy to thing. My baseball career that Perry talks about, I mean, it was nothing. I was a pitcher in high school, and I blew my arm out. Like, I had an injury, and I just like was throwing too hard, and that's it. And I told Perry about it, and he always bites on that. Like, I was, you would think I was a minor league player by the way he talks about that. So I could still I think the last time I threw a pitch, like a real pitch, was like I was in one of these like Jersey Shore like carnival things. This is a long time ago, and they rate your pitch, like where you throw, if you throw this hard you win a thing, and I threw I threw 88, and I thought that was pretty cool because it was like the Back to the Future speed, and it's a pretty good fastball. But that I doubt I can come anywhere close to that now. He did talk about red buttons. Mark Harris did, and it was weird. Like, I always liked red buttons, but he apparently like red buttons was like evil. Like, I thought he was getting him confused. Like, who's that other guy that's like the redheaded fucking Danny Kaye? Because Danny Kaye I knew was an asshole. I always thought, like, are you sure you're not thinking of Danny Kaye? But he was talking about them. How far can Brody throw? I don't know how fast Brody can throw, but I was fairly decent. Like, I wasn't coordinated athletically at all. I couldn't run for shit. I could hit every now and again, I'd get a lucky pitch, but for some reason I could throw. I will say I had a decent curveball. I have long fingers because I was a piano player. I took piano lessons, and I had this really good grip on the ball, which I think is the secret to being a good pitcher, is if you can grip the ball well and release it well and have some kind of coordination. So I had a good curveball. I think I had a good fastball. Anyhow, but Who the fuck knows? I'm not gonna be like Perry and say I could have been signed by, I would have been a pro or whatever. I don't think I would have ever come close to being anything. No, I didn't take a milk bath, but I'll tell you what though, that mansion, even the guest room had a gorgeous shower, and like bathtub, and like it was just opulent. It was what you would picture like a 1970s Hollywood star's mansion to look like. It was just opulence. I'd love to know who owns it now. 'Cause it was obscene that he was still living there even in the late 90s. Like she was long gone, but he was holding on to this estate and this lifestyle that he couldn't attain. Because I don't know how. I always wanted to know where he got his money from. I mean, I'm sure Martha Ray left him some kind of inheritance, but he was always tight-lipped about it. He always had something going on. He was like a Ralph Cramden. He always had some kind of new thing going on. Let me tell you what I'm working on, Tom. He like, this will be the new thing. He had some kind of like, he was going to do this thing like voicemails or something. Fuck. I'd have to really go through my old emails because he always had a pitch for some new venture he was getting into. Always like, I'm flying to Geneva on Monday to talk to some very important people. This new invention that I have, because it never went anywhere. Everything he said was all vaporware, but he always thought it was going to be the next big thing. He always thought it was going to come up as like some big thing. Yeah, I thought Brody was a good but I knew he was a baseball fan, but I knew he was like a baseball guy. I didn't know how good he was. I should get MLB pitcher tattooed on my arm. Yeah, pitcher. Yeah, I don't have a tattoo on my body, but if I did, it would make more sense than him as a snowboarder. Yeah, Brody was super cool when anytime I came across him, he was super nice. I'll be honest, I was never like that versed in his comedy, but super sweet guy. I don't play the piano. I wish I did. It was one of those fucking things where I rebelled against the lessons because when I moved, I had this great piano teacher in Brooklyn where I lived and grew up, and I really there was this older guy and he did it out of his basement and he had a bunch of classes, and I would do recitals and stuff like that and practice, and I had my own keyboard at home and I would practice with headphones. And then when I moved to Long Island, I just hated my teacher, just didn't like her. And instead of finding someone that I did like, I just stopped going. And I regret it because I wish I could still play a little bit, and I can kind of read music, but I really wish I would have stayed. I really wish I would have stayed with it because it's definitely one of my regrets that I didn't, because I spent so much time doing it when I was younger, and I was foolish for not doing it. For real, did Don and Mary Jane enjoy the fundraising I did for the Paul McCartney tickets? Yeah, absolutely. He's a fucking huge fan, and they were really good tickets. So yes, very grateful. Very. I remember that was his birthday. Not geez, last year was the pandemic, so it was the year before last year. He talked to Brody, email, cried when he died. He pitched to ASU. Yeah, it was fucked. It was fucked. I mean, that was fucking. That was weird. I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that I knew him on any level. I didn't, but like I said, the times that he was around. I think I interviewed him on, if anybody remembers the wrap up show that I did when and it was weird about that. I was doing it for people that weren't Perry, and he was one of the guys, and he was just super cool. Played along with it, and it was really polite. So I could technically say I interviewed Brody. How does Don feel about Perry's streaming career? It's a question for him. But it's Perry's job now, so it's like anything. Even though Perry doesn't treat it as such, I think he will eventually. Was the whole JQA TomB storyline Tony's in? Let's get into territory that I feel is not my place to talk about, but no is the answer. Yeah, and like I only really wanted to do that wrap up like when it was Perry, because that was the thing, and it really it ties all back to the Stern thing, because I remember like how kiss assy John Hine was when he did the wrap up show, and it was just it was unlistenable then. I can only imagine how bad it is now, where it's just like they talk about how great this fucking show was and how great Howard is and everything, and I wanted to parody that, and that's kind of where it was born out of. And then like, you know, almost doing a separate character as like that John Hine kiss ass character, where you just like recap what everything that was great on the show you just heard. You know, because this guy John Hine, who does it for Howard Stern, I assume he still does it unless somebody tells me otherwise, where I can't imagine him doing it now. It's only 3 days a week. What the fuck do you talk about? Where he's just like, Howard is so great. He had this guy, he had so and so in, and boy, only Howard can get something like that out of him. And boy, what a moment. And then I'll play a clip, and it was always nauseating. And then I think the last one, you know, it was kind of, it had run its course, and then the last one was a super long one that I had with Perry that I loved. It was like an hour and a half. Like it was like the final wrap up show, but it was with Perry. It was great. I mean, I liked it. It was him driving home, and I think that's when he talked about the putting the fucking tomahawk ribeyes on the George Foreman grill. I didn't edit the Trump video. I just listened to a lot of. I just pulled a lot of Trump interviews from like radio interviews where we'd call in, or TV interviews, a lot of Fox and Friends stuff on YouTube, and I just got the ones, you know, the clips that I thought would work, and and then we did a third one that I never put out because I just didn't think it was as good as the other two. I wasn't as happy with it, so I never did anything with it. But it was, I forget how long ago it was now. It was a long time ago now. But yeah, I was really happy with the way that came out. It was, you know, it was risky because you're basically, in a way, I had a soundboard built, and it was risky because, you know, what if it's either gonna work? It's like I laugh at the Mike Lindell thing. That clip that came out like last week where Mike Lindell was pranked, where they had that legit clip of Trump saying, you know, it was like hello or hello everybody, and then, you know, Mike Lindell lights up. It's like, as long as you hear the voice, and, you know, because Trump has a very distinctive voice, as long as you hear that. But and also, what is the unknowable is, what is the other person going to say? But my benefit was I knew Perry so well, I almost could predict what he was going to say and had the responses ready to go. And he didn't always go down the road I thought he was going to go down, but he came close enough where it was really, worked really well. Oh, your buddy was Arnold Schwarzenegger when he called in to say he was going to blow up the moon so women wouldn't have their periods anymore, and CNN ran the story. That was such, tell your friend, that guy is so fucking great. I love that, Arnold. And I always thought impersonators were hack in general. Like, because Stern would always rail on other DJs that did like the Rick Dees has this impersonator on, or like Rick Dees' wife does these impersonations that are terrible. And Howard eventually got really hack by having a lot of like shitty impersonators on, but the Arnold one is defies that. Like that breaks the mold. It was so fucking good. Yeah, man, I'd have to find where I have the third Trump interview. I don't even know if I fucking have it, to be honest with you, because it was one where Trump kind of turned on Perry. Like, he was like, I took clips from like when Trump called into Don Lemon. I mean, it had to be. It was early on. It was definitely within the first year of his presidency, and it was like, you know, you're really not such a nice guy. You know, you say a lot of bad things. And like, what? No, I don't. I'm paraphrasing the beats of it because I honestly don't remember, but I just remember it didn't click the way the other two did, and I didn't want to lessen the quality of the previous two, which I was really happy with. Oh, Evil Dave! I forgot about Evil Dave. He's another guy that died. Evil Dave, the guy who played Evil Dave. He was great, and you know what was bummer about that is, Stern went on Letterman one time, probably within the last 15 years, maybe. It was definitely in the height. It was definitely while I was still listening, and it was definitely when Howard was on Sirius. I want to say maybe it was 2008, 2007 ish. And Letterman was really tickled by Evil Dave, and Letterman actually called the real Evil Dave, and he fucking wasn't home. Can you imagine that? Like he had the phone out on the desk, Letterman did, and they were gonna call Evil Dave on Late Night with Letterman, which you would imagine the guy who played Evil Dave was a huge Letterman fan. He must have hung himself after he found out that Letterman tried to call him, and it's just. Oof. That was a bummer. Yeah, I can't guarantee the third interview. I can't because I don't know where it is, and I don't know how many pieces it's in. Like I don't know, I'm pretty organized with stuff, but I just I'd have to find it, and even then I'd have to listen to it. It has to be somewhat good to put it out there, because it's something you could do in the future too. I wish I think I might have some. I have a picture with Mark Harris somewhere. I wish I had more Mark Harris stuff, because even when I emailed him, I had like an AOL account that I don't even know if I have access to anymore. I wish I had because he was. I always wanted to interview him. I did. I was doing a small radio show, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to have him on because I felt like that was a kind of bullshit thing, like where poaching a Stern person, or whatever, and he would have done it via phone or something like that. But we had really nice phone calls. We'd be on instant messenger, and it'd be like Friday night like this, and I'd be whatever if I was home, and it was late at night, and I was doing whatever I was doing, and he'd be like he we'd be talking and he'd be getting onto some tangent like, let me call you. And then it would pick up from where the instant messaging left off. He's like, so this is what really happened at the Bob Hope party in 1982, or something, No, it couldn't be 82. It was like 80, whenever he was around Martha Raye, like late 80s or something like that. And he had these great, he loved to talk about rubbing elbows with old Hollywood that he met via Martha Raye. He was really proud of those associations. Wait, are you talking about Evil Dave Belushi Sushi, that he got in the green room because he was out front just bothering everyone and talking like Dave, so they thought, we need to get this guy away from him? That's funny. I once sat in the green room at Letterman, and I got in there because a friend of mine was on the show. And I sat in the green room with some weirdos, and Jason Alexander post Seinfeld with his agent. And I'll never forget this because it had to be his agent or publicist or something. And he was promoting some shit fucking sitcom. It was 2004. I think he was doing a CBS sitcom where he played a sports writer or something like that. Who the fuck knows? He had 2 failed sitcoms after Seinfeld. And anyway, so he was on the show doing a normal Letterman-esque interview, and it was just me and his publicist. And it was the green room was pretty, it was for late night with, or late show with David Letterman, it was not the greatest green room. But they had food, they had these great sugar cookies. I remember I never really come across sugar cookies in my existence, but I remember really loving the ones they had. So I was eating those. And it was just me. I was waiting. Morrissey was on that night, and so I was just hanging out in the green room, and this guy is guffawing, laughing at every single thing Jason Alexander is saying, even the things that aren't funny. He's laughing, and I understand these people, these phony agents or whatever, they have to laugh at their clients' bullshit, but there's nobody there but me, and I wonder would he still be laughing if I wasn't in the room? So I was shooting him darts. I didn't want to be too much of a dick because, I'm lucky to even be there. But like the guy was just like laughing and clapping, and I'm staring at him like I almost want him to engage me. And I'm like, you really find that funny? And like, Jason Alexander was talking about typical late night conversation bullshit, where it was like, yeah, my wife, did my laundry, and my pants came back, whatever the fucking bullshit late night conversation is. And the guy is like slapping his knee, like can't breathe, and I'm like, I eventually said, I was like, yeah, he's really funny, and he doesn't acknowledge me at all. He's just locked into the monitor laughing at the guy. But I always felt like that was my only green room experience was that. It was just fucking ridiculous. Mark Harris lost all his money with the mansion and Yahoo. I didn't know that. Wow, see, that was after my time. Favorite Perry memory. I don't know if this is my absolute favorite, but I'll give you something that's very Perry. That I kind of love because it was genuine Perry, and it was the Big Three podcast where Tom Brennan, comes back from England. I'm sorry, I gotta blow my nose. Just bear with me for a second. Sorry about that. No snorting. When I came back from England, and I think it's technically the last Big Three podcast of that run or whatever. Anyway, the whole thing goes on and blah blah blah. Podcast ends, and we're in the hallway. It's Perry and I. He hasn't seen me in a long time. Hasn't spoken to me in a while. And, I was like, I'm disheveled. I had grown out a beard. I went very method with it. And Perry comes up to me and he's like, I think I was like, hey, I need money. I don't know how I'm going to get back to New York. And he he basically comes up to me and he's like, all right, I'm going to help you out. Tom, listen, I know you're going through some hard times right now. Listen, and I thought he was going to go into his wallet and give me a couple of bucks, which would really break my heart because it's like, oh wow, Perry, you're actually giving me money, like helping me out. He didn't do that, but he gave me this advice, and he's like, if you go to Del Taco, you can get a bean and cheese burrito for 75 cents, and that was his big tip to me, the person who was like, disheveled and starving most likely. And I wish it was done on mic. I've told that story before elsewhere, but and there's other there's sweeter things, like when he sent that toy shop vac, I thought that was really sweet, and there's definitely a lot of sweet moments with Perry where he does something, tries to help out, in a way that he can. Are they 99 cents now? Oh, that's inflation for you. 'Cause, yeah, I guess that was like 2015. Oh, Kimmel's Green Room is a party. Yeah. I've been to Kimmel's Green Room a couple times. Yeah, they have an open bar. They have great food. Like, it's fucking like, I mean, not now, obviously, but like, they always have like catered food, like fucking like, they'll have like lobster mac and cheese and an open bar with like Guinness on tap. I think Guinness on tap, or it might be in bottles. But anyway, very, very good open bar. It's like, like a party atmosphere. Probably the best green room in late night, for whatever that means. I kind of met Russell Brand, kind of, and I say kind of like he was like around a group that I was at, like at an after show once. He doesn't really do it for me. I agree with you. Del Taco is the best food. By the way, if Del Taco was in New York, I would be enormous. I would be out of control. I'd be like fucking Orson Welles, like in the 70s. I love Del Taco. In fact, when I flew into LA last year and Perry picked me up actually from Burbank Airport, and then we went straight to his P.O. box, I was starving. I hadn't eaten since like the night before, and there was a Del Taco near the airport. I was like, pull over, we're going to Del Taco. And I ordered almost one of everything. Like, it was just, I was like, Perry, whatever you want on the menu. And he was like judging me for how much food I ordered. Like, I was like, I want this, because I never get Del Taco. I was like, I want this burrito, I want that burrito. and we just ordered a shit ton of food, and it was just I surprisingly did not order the meat and cheese burrito. Oh, is that right? Kimmel's Green Room was great until Andy Dick kept showing up, and they shut it down to invite only. You met Mitch Hedberg there, who did. Wow, I didn't know that. I haven't been in there in a long time. I just don't have any desire to go to like a talk show taping. Although when Kimmel was in Brooklyn a few years ago, he went to the whatever it's called, whatever the Theater of the Arts or something, and kind of a green room on the third floor, like above the theater, which was completely decked out in like booze, food, pizza, anything you could fucking want. It was amazing. Yeah, if you can find a Del Taco, it is life changing. You think TomB might be Rockefeller or the Illuminati? Wow. What's the stoner burrito? I don't know the stoner burrito, but I have a soft spot for Del Taco. I just friggin' love it. I'm kind of over In-N-Out Burger because that's the thing, like that if you're from like not from the West Coast and you go to the West Coast, like everybody's like, oh, go to In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger is fine, but I'll take Del Taco any day over because like Del Taco is actually like good. If Taco Bell was good and fresh and had a varied menu, because my main problem with Taco Bell is we get into like a fast food discussion, but their menu is so fucking limited and uncreative. Like they have nothing in way of burritos. There's like all their burritos kind of stink. You have to hack the menu to get anything decent, and their tacos stink. Sometimes their specialty items are okay, but they always take them away. Like they're limited. But that's all you have out here. As far as like fast food Mexican goes, is Taco Bell. Have I ever been to an Epstein party? I can't talk about it, Faster Blade. I'll keep that to myself. Does Kimmel know about these streams? I believe he does. I don't know that first-hand account, but I believe he does. I've never been to Whataburger. Stoner is bean and cheese plus fries, queso, jalapenos, and a few other things. That sounds pretty good. I'm a big fan of the California burrito, which has fries in it. That was developed in San Diego. Whenever I'm in San Diego, I always get that. Fantastic steak burrito with guacamole, sour cream, and basically the fries are in place of rice, which I never like in burritos anyway, or beans. Del Taco is terrible, always in bad neighborhoods. They're not always in bad neighborhoods. I mean, I understand why you say that, but I've had Del Taco in decent neighborhoods. It might be terrible to somebody that like lives near a Del Taco. It's just like to me as a New Yorker that doesn't have any exposure to it. To me, it's just like. Now, do I think it's great food? No, it's great fast food. But Tokyo got their first Taco Bell a couple of years ago. Lines wrapped around city blocks. Yeah, I'm always fascinated. One of the things I don't use really Instagram for much, but one of the things I follow on Instagram are like international fast food places. Like I follow every single McDonald's from every single country just to look at the different things they offer internationally, because I'm fascinated by international American fast food. Like when I'll watch YouTube videos of people going over to Japan and going to like even the Burger King, and I can't stand Burger King, but just the interesting things they have, especially in countries where like Hindu countries or something where you can't have beef, and they'll have like the chicken mac, which is the Big Mac but it's chicken patties, and it's a different special sauce. It looks like two McChickens, honestly, from the pictures. Or they'll have like the shrimp burger, the curry shrimp burger, or something like that. Anyway, stuff like that. So I'd always be curious to see like what a Taco Bell would be internationally if they would be diverse, because they're so limited here. Like I always complain about that. The rare times I do go to Taco Bell, it's like, what do you get? It's all the same basic shit. No, Taco Bell is not the same as Del Taco. I feel Del Taco is far, far, far above Taco Bell. In fact, I don't even know how Taco Bell exists in California when you have so many Del Tacos. Like I'm always puzzled by that. Like there's like lines on the drive-through on like the Taco Bell on like Sunset or wherever. I'm like, why would you fucking go to Taco Bell? It's dog food. You can go anywhere else, even like a taqueria. You know, it's like here. It's like going to Domino's. It's like seeing Domino's in New York is insane. It's like, who the fuck's going to Domino's? When you can get, but the thing about Domino's existing in New York or Papa John's or any of those other things, not so much New York City, but outside, you know, in like, you know, Queens, Brooklyn, or Long Island, or Westchester, or wherever, is not that they compete against pizzerias. It's that they're open till like 4 o'clock in the morning. So whereas a regular pizzeria is closed at 10 p.m., Papa John's and Domino's they'll deliver you a fucking pizza, you know, now, you know, which is crazy. See you later, Belushi Sushi. I'm gonna get going too, actually. I gotta do my dose of NyQuil and hopefully wake up feeling a little better. Do they have salsa bars at some location? Not now, right? I can't imagine they have that now, but that's good to know. There's a Papa John's in City Field. Is that new? I haven't been to City Field. Well, obviously not recently, but I haven't been there in a couple of years. I've been to Taco King in West Hempstead, and you're right. You can get a good taco there. Yeah, that's actually I'm in Westbury, and there are. Oh, I just went to one the other day, in off Old Country Road. It's actually really good. It's a little boutique-y, but off Old Country in the shopping center where Trader Joe's is. It's actually right next to Trader Joe's. I forget the name of it. It was fantastic. I had like fish taco. They were some of the best fish tacos I've ever had. They were fucking great. And they had Modelo on tap. It was really good. But there's 2 different kind of Mexican in New York. There's like authentic Mexican. Like there's a place called Little Mexico in Westbury on Post Avenue that's very good if you're into authentic Mexican. That's not Tex-Mexy. But yeah, you're right. Taco King is a good call. $50 to microwave the NyQuil for 4 minutes. I just might do that just to make it a little more dramatic. But anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out tonight. Thanks for keeping me company in my illness and talking Stern or whatever. I want to get a phone number for this, and you can just like call into the Skype, or I can call out, and we'll do that soon. I don't know. I don't think I'll do this on Sunday since we're doing that 12 noon start. Well, 3 p.m. for me. But yeah, we'll do these again. And thanks for hanging out. Little burrito place called Gonzo's in Garden City. I don't know about. I'm gonna write that one down. Actually, because I've been looking for Mexican places. That's the thing about New York. You can't, you know, good Mexican is rare. But yeah, if you check out that place next to Papa John's, Trader Joe's, on off Old Country Road, it's really good. But yeah, it's rare to find decent Mexican in New York. That's why I would kill for a Del Taco. Like I said, I think that the closest Del Taco to New York is in Michigan. That's the furthest east Del Taco, and I've been there. I've been to that one. But anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'm going to kill it. 7:15 I think is a good time to end on. Gonzo's is cash only. Good to know. I'm going to check it out, Chaz. I'll let you know. I'm going to check. I might even check it out tomorrow. Fuck, I can go for. I skipped dinner. I can go for fucking Mexican right now, actually. Cinco de Mayo, you know what? I tried it actually very recently. No, it's not that good. They're extortionately overpriced. There's a taqueria. We're getting very local here. I'll have to get back to you, Chaz, because I don't know the name of it. But there's a taqueria on Old Country Road further down, going away from Westbury towards Hicksville. It's technically in Hicksville, and that's very good. It's a little pricey too, but the guy takes great care in his menu, and everything's fresh. They make the tortillas there, which is really. It's in like a shopping center, and I know the Chinese place next to it is called Tommy's, which is, I always found it is a weird name for a Chinese place. And then there's another haircut place called the King of Fades or something like that. So you'd have to look it up. You have to, if you Google those places, you'll find it, because off the top of my head, I don't know the name of it. But if you're local, that's a great place too. And there's a good place in Levittown called Tacos Perfectos, which is the only place on Long Island, or in New York really, that I found that does a California burrito. Now they do it with crinkle fries, which is not traditional. You're supposed to do it with spear fries. I've actually told the owner that. I haven't been there in a while, but he looked at me like, "Who the fuck are you to tell me my Mexican menu?" But I was like, "If you're gonna do the California burrito, which I'm happy you're doing, get the right kind of fries." But and he put something else in it too. What was the other ingredient? I said, this does not belong in there also. There was some other fucking ingredient. I can't think of it. Anyway, those are that taqueria next to Tommy's Chinese. I would Google it for you if I had my browser up, but I don't. But Los Polos Hermanos, I heard they have good chicken, but I don't know about their Mexican food. But yeah, and then Little Mexico on Post Avenue is fantastic. Again, if you're into authentic Mexican, small dining area. And there's a place in Williston Park that's a little more high end. That's actually pretty good too. That's like fancy Mexican on Hillside Avenue. I think it's called Margaritas in Williston Park. Anyway, local New York talk. But all right, that's it for me now. I'm actually officially hungry. So I'll talk to you guys on Sunday. Hopefully Perry will be in a great mood. Make some good international calls. Feel free to email me if you want to do like a really bad international accent, and we'll set that up. All right, guys. Good night. Thanks for hanging out.